Well, here we are with the 2017 Subaru Legacy 3.6R Limited. I've had this car for 2 years and still have not really made a good driving video of it, so I thought I would go ahead and do that today. Again, this is a 17 3.6R Limited with the EyeSight package. I think Subaru from the factory called it Option Package 23, which adds navigation and EyeSight. Other features that were new for 2017 were the reverse automatic braking with rear parking sensors. The 2018 models, as we all know, of course, got the mid-cycle refresh. There are no mechanical changes, but it's just all cosmetic. The front end looks a little bit different. The rear looks a little bit different. There are some changes to the interior and some technological changes as well. Oh, let me also introduce you to this video's special guest. This is Sandy. She's visiting for a few weeks. So, oh, you okay? She likes riding in the car. So this being a 17 model is going to look a little bit dated compared to the 2018 and 19 models. As I said, I've had the car for 2 years and we have 36,000 miles. So I've done quite a bit of highway driving in this car, and it's been terrific for that with the combination of the all-wheel drive, the EyeSight, and the really comfortable seats. That's something this car is really quite good at. These seats are nice and plush, but they really are only meant for comfort, I think. You can see the side bolsters, or lack thereof, don't really hold you in place in corners. All right, let's just get moving here and I'll do some more talking while we're going. Now, this is one of the last mid-size cars that still offers a 6-cylinder engine. This has the 3.6 liter boxer engine. It's the EZ36 motor. I wouldn't be surprised if the next generation Legacy goes to a turbo 4-cylinder as its upgraded engine, but for now the 6-cylinder is still here. Even for 2019, I think really only the other 2019 model that still offers a V6 or a 6-cylinder is the Toyota Camry, and there's of course still the Ford Fusion Sport, but that's kind of a different animal since it's a twin turbo V6. But if you want a 6-cylinder, this is one of the last options that you have. And the handling of this thing will probably surprise you. You know, this is more of a comfortable, luxurious car. It's not, you know, supposed to be an alternative to a WRX. So this thing certainly has adequate power. It's probably not going to knock your socks off, just because for a 6-cylinder engine, it's rated at 256 horsepower and 247 pound-feet of torque. And, you know, those are pretty modest numbers for a 6-cylinder these days. The turbo 4-cylinders are getting pretty close, if not beating those numbers. But this is certainly, like I said, it's still adequate. It's good for passing power on the highway. This is just an excellent highway cruiser. Now, as I said, the CVT, some people hate it, some people don't mind it. I personally don't mind it. You know, if this were something more like a WRX, I might not really care for it. But in a car like this, I think it's totally fine. Now, one of the things that I don't like about this CVT, and this is very common of these transmissions, is when you really stomp on it right off the line, it's pretty laggy. It feels like it takes a while for the power to kind of get built up and sent to the wheels. So in this particular car, it feels like it takes until the engine has to hit about 4,000 RPM before it feels like, basically like something's happening. See, here we go. Lag, 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 lag. There's some power. But again, that lag, I think, is really only right off the line. If you're already moving or if you're passing on the highway, it's really not an issue. What I found is that driving the Legacy around, it just, because of Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive, you just feel like you have so much more control as compared to a lot of front-wheel drive cars. I mean, that's not necessarily the case anymore with the new Accord and the new Camry, and, you know, especially something like the Honda Civic Type R. But you feel really well planted to the ground when you're driving down the road. In inclement weather, like even driving in rain, you just feel more confident behind the wheel, and especially in snow and ice, this thing drives like a freaking boss. And the other interesting part of this car is that the interior, the cabin, it feels reasonably roomy, but especially when you're driving it down the road, kind of down the highway, the car kind of feels like it's smaller than it is. And I think one reason for that is the Subaru's excellent visibility. And by that I mean the belt line is low, the roof line is high, there's lots of glass around you, there's really not a terrible blind spot. You can pretty much see the front of the hood, so you have a really good idea of where the ends of the car are, especially when you're parking. In general, this 6-cylinder engine is really smooth, especially with this CVT. And something else that might surprise you in this car is the steering feel. There is a bit of on-center vagueness. This is electronic power steering. But once you start, you know, going through some corners, it actually does have a little bit of heft and feel to it. It's not totally numb, not totally vague. I wouldn't call it razor sharp like a WRX or even the new Accord or Mazda 6. But it's certainly better than a lot of other mid-size sedans, I would say. And going through corners here, there is a little bit of body lean, but the chassis and the drivetrain really can handle it quite well. Now, something that I find about this all-wheel drive car is that it combines most of the good and maybe some of the not so good characteristics of front and rear wheel drive. And by that I mean, when you accelerate in an all-wheel drive car, it just feels like you're getting propelled forward, whereas in a rear wheel drive car, it kind of feels like you're getting pushed forward, and a front wheel drive car kind of feels like you're getting pulled forward. But since all four wheels are drive wheels, it feels like you're just getting propelled forward, especially when you have a reasonable amount of power like in this 6-cylinder engine. And then the other difference I would say is in cornering. The way I would describe cornering in an all-wheel drive car is it feels like you're being rotated around corners, which just makes it feel more precise. Now, because the front wheels are still driven, not exclusively in the all-wheel drive, you can get some understeer sometimes. So even though this is a vehicle that's more kind of luxurious and just meant to be comfortable, those are the kinds of handling dynamics that it has. It's kind of, like I said, it'll surprise you if you've never really driven one of these. Now, the manual mode in this car, I'll go ahead and demonstrate it a little bit. You can see there's a gear indicator here in the instrument cluster. Now, the weird thing about it, because this is a CVT, I mentioned earlier that it has this kind of lag, this rubber bandy feel if you stomp on it right off the line. And the manual mode really doesn't help that, because its fake first gear it feels really tall, as you'll see in a minute. It goes up to like 50 miles an hour. So I think that's another reason that it feels kind of laggy, but when I get a chance, I'll stand on it here and we'll get up to highway speeds. You can see it got up to 45-50 miles an hour there. And then the gear spacing feels like it's really close together after that. Well, gear spacing, since this is a CVT. Now, as I said before, one of the benefits of having this 6-cylinder engine is the passing power. And something that the CVT is very good at is giving you that, that power that you want when you ask for it. So when I get a chance, I'll go ahead and stomp on it again. Okay. You know, it brings the revs right up and simulates a downshift or several, I guess. The other good thing about road trips with this car pertaining to the CVT is fuel economy. I've been able to get over 30 miles to the gallon on some trips. The EPA rates this at 20 city, 28 highway, and I would say that those numbers are more or less accurate. Now you can see right now I'm averaging 19.4, so you know, that's not great, but again, this is a 3,700 pound all-wheel drive 6-cylinder sedan. So the fact that it is able to muster up 30 miles per gallon on the highway is pretty incredible, and I think that has a lot to do, that has pretty much everything to do with the CVT, because this engine has been around in the Legacy since 2010, but the CVT has only been around since 2015, and the older 2010 through 14 Legacies with this engine had a 5-speed automatic. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the EPA ratings for that combination were 18 city, 25 highway. So I've never driven one of those, so I don't know what it's like in the real world, but I would imagine that the CVT gives you a definite fuel economy advantage. And unlike something like a WRX or a Forester XT, you can put regular fuel in this 3.6 liter engine. So its styling, like I said, isn't necessarily something that's groundbreaking or cutting edge, but it's clean, and if you really want something different, you know, that's not, say, a Camry or an Accord or a Fusion, this is really worth a look. Oh, okay. Well, I better take Sandy for a walk, so I'll go ahead and cut it off. Do you want to come out? Okay. Sandy, what do you think of the Legacy? I think she likes it. Anyway, so the Legacy, I think, is a very strong alternative if you're looking for a mid-size sedan. It is getting a little bit dated now that there's a new, especially because there's a new Accord and a new Camry, and those cars have some more modern technology and they handle quite well, probably a little bit better than this. But if you want something with all-wheel drive, this is, I think, the best option. And I think the Legacy is a vehicle that just, it works as an entire package. It doesn't really stand out in one particular way. It just does everything very well. So I've certainly enjoyed it for the last 2 years. And, you know, I think I'll have it for quite some time. So I think Sandy and I are going to head back home.